Hey everyone, this is Sydney Gerard with Soul Hype Cindy. We spend our lives navigating friendships, relationships, health. Let's do it together. Let's leap into our best and most enriching lives through true and inspiring stories. Welcome to Soul Hype Cindy. I am Cindy Gerard. I am a 46-year-old Generation X lady who is married to a gentleman named Jeff and have 2 daughters. I am someone who is in a place in their life that I feel I have lived enough to have some wisdom, and I also think that there's so much more and enrichment out there for me to learn. So my journey, I'm asking you to come along with me and learn more about how you can not only enrich your life, but also lives of others around you and have more impact and just more knowledge to, bring stories to life and to share experiences and how you can support your family and friends in a whole different and new way. And so for those who are just now joining us, please follow me for some behind the scenes and more resources that are discussed on the podcast at my Instagram, which is at Soul Hype Cindy, SoulHypeCindy. And so I'm so excited today. We're going to talk a little bit about relationships, and if you were to get divorced and have a blended family, kind of some steps of how to do that well, learn from others' mistakes, and just be real honest with one of my closest friends who happens to be 30A's most fabulous photographer, who is Shelli Roberts. And Shelli is joining us today. Welcome, Shelli.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here.
Oh, I'm thankful to be here.
So we have a few questions to kind of break the ice.
Okay.
One is, tell us a funny story about your childhood.
Oh my goodness. One story about my childhood. I can't believe I would share this, but I remember being we called it the beauty parlor. I'm from Alabama, so we call it the beauty parlor. So I was going to the beauty parlor with my mom, and she was getting her hair done. I was just bored, and I had a lot of energy as a child. And so I was like slithering around like a snake on the floor, like just playing around. And then I bit something, and my mom was like, "What did you just do?" And I just was always like so curious and so like I wanted to be doing something all the time. And she was just humiliated. Oh, and I just remember being
another
like,
patron. You bit another patron.
No, I bit like they were sitting there watching me and like bit something. And she was like, "What are you doing?" I just remember feeling so like, like I can't believe I just did that, But I was
at least
it
wasn't
fun.
A person.
Yeah, at least it wasn't a person.
At least it wasn't.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
I'll always remember that. I don't know why, but I always do. But yeah,
that's so funny. And then Shelli happens to be married to one of my favorite people in the world. I love him. His name is Robbie. So tell us one thing I know there's many things that you respect about Robbie because he's a great guy. And I have to tell you that one time I was at a business luncheon with Robbie, and somebody asked him, it's when you guys had just gotten married, or maybe within like a year, and there was a business luncheon, and somebody asked him, they're like, "Oh, like how many children do you have?" Or that. He's like, "I have 4 children," and he like named them, and I thought to myself like, oh my gosh, like the way he said it was like your children were his children. He didn't go in like, "I have a blended family, blah, 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 blah." He literally, like the way he said it, he was like so proud to have your children as children. So what is one thing that you respect about Robbie?
He is what you see is what you get. He's the kindest. He has the sweetest heart, and he has been the most amazing stepdad. And I'm so thankful for that. It's a blessing, but he's so patient, very patient, very patient.
Thank God that our husbands are patient.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So we're going to get right into it. So one of the first questions is, what were the biggest, hold on. How old were you, and how old were your children when you first got divorced?
Pretty sure I was like, I haven't really thought about how old I was. I think I was around 36 maybe.
Okay.
I think I was around 36. My kids were, one was in kindergarten going into first, and then the others were like in the 3rd and 4th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were the biggest emotional challenges you faced when merging the two families?
Well, we lived in Atlanta.
Yes. So long distance too. That's even harder.
Yes. And Robbie lived here, and Robbie had one biological son, had three biological kids, 2 boys and a girl. And, the big question was like, when we get married, like, what are we going to do? Are we going to move to Atlanta? Or is he going to move to Atlanta? Or am I going to move here? My parents lived here. My family lived here. And at the end of the day, we decided the best thing for us would be to live here. And the kids were really excited because they love their grandparents. Yeah. My sister was here, and so they were very excited.
That's a huge blessing.
It is a huge blessing. But then, when you are merging families and you have a new home, mm-hmm. a new city, mm-hmm. a new stepdad, mm-hmm. a new sibling, a new school, all new, and then their dad was still in Atlanta, and he's an amazing dad, and he's married. But, they were very excited, but yet they missed their dad when they moved here, Yes. So that was really hard as far as, Robbie and I really tried to prepare ourselves for the things that could happen, and so we, like them missing their family or missing their friends and missing their old home in Atlanta, and we had great friends in Atlanta too. So we really tried just to put ourselves in their shoes.
Okay. That's,
yes. I mean, Robbie, they adored Robbie, and
he's a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun. And we really tried to put ourselves in their shoes. And so when there were hard things, we just tried to have compassion and patience and work through them. And you just never know what day. Like one day one would be upset maybe, and then one day one would have so much fun, and
yes.
just you have to be able to switch gears,
very
and
fluid.
understand that this is a great thing, but it's also a hard thing, and just trying to be understanding.
Yes.
There was exciting times, and then there were really hard times.
So let's back up just a little bit. Like, okay. So how did you guys? I know, like, for people out there that may be recently a divorcee, mm-hmm. and they have met somebody, and this may be the one, and they fall in love. Is there, like, how do you figure out, like, when to introduce the mm-hmm. other one, and, like, how do you, like, you know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. that, because that's kind of a hard thing too, is like, is there, like, did somebody advise you on, like, when the best time to introduce somebody, like, to your children? Is
yes. there? Well, I was introduced to Robbie, and he lived here, and
yes.
we lived in Atlanta, and I was back and forth just because of work, and my parents lived here, and so, it was important to me I wasn't just going to introduce him to my kids until
yes.
I knew that this was something special. And so it was a while before I introduced them, and he introduced me to his son. And then when we did introduce them, it was, this is my friend, and we just kind of hung out. And,
yes, very so like a casual.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, just to kind of see. And I was very honest with the kids,
like a neutral
too.
spot, like a restaurant is probably a good place versus like somebody's house.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was just real relaxed. This is Robbie, he's my friend, and they were young, but old enough to understand. Two
yes.
of them were, and so we just took it really slow. Like, that was important to me, just to take it.
There's
really
no reason
slow.
to rush.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's so funny because when I first met Jeff, I called my mom. And I was talking to my mom about it. So I guess my mom talked to my dad about it. Mm-hmm. And then I called, like, my dad told me one time, this is like, I remember my dad telling me this. I might have been like 16 years old. Like, I knew I wanted to marry your mom within 2 weeks. And so, like, after 2 weeks, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to marry this guy. Like, mm-hmm. oh Lord. And so I went to call my mom, and my dad answered the phone, and I go, Dad, how long did it take you to figure out you wanted to marry Mom? He's like, 2 weeks. And he goes, uh-oh. The guy, he goes, uh-oh. He goes, uh-oh, the guy from Birmingham? And I said, yes. He goes, take it slow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and that's what we did. I mean, and we were long distance. We didn't have a choice but to take it
yes,
slow.
It helps.
Yes. Yeah, so it was very slow, very, very slow. And I knew there was something special about Robbie, but, when you don't live in the same town as, that's hard. And
yes.
so, and then when I was in town, I was either working and would have a little bit of time to be with him. But I knew what I was looking for, yes. I knew what my values were, and I wasn't gonna just introduce. I mean, I don't know how to explain that. Like, I knew what I wanted.
Yes.
And I was willing to wait for it.
Yes.
even if I was lonely at times, or but there was something special about him and the way he was with my kids, and the way, I remember one time I went on a date and I really didn't want to go, but I did. My sister was like, "You've got to get yourself out there. Like, you can't be, And I just remember like telling him about my kids or whatever. You could just tell like he just wasn't really interested. And that was it for me. Like I was done. Like I just knew that he could be a friend, but that's as far as we were going to go, But 3 kids is a lot, when you're, Robbie had one son, and then here I am bringing 3 kids in the mix. So it took time. Mm-hmm.
So like, how did you know, like, did you do, because I remember, something's like, you make like a list of like your non-negotiables or whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't do that, but you have a lot more discernment, especially after being divorced, you feel like you have like a lot more discernment of like, what's very important to you and what's,
Well, it was very important to me to find someone with the same values as far as, just as far as a relationship with God. And, what was important. I wanted to know what was important to him. He wanted to know what's important to me. And, but as I said, we were taking it really slow. So it didn't happen fast. But that was just important to me. If you, I have 3 kids, like I said, that's a lot. If you can't accept the kids, a lot, then I knew that it wasn't going to work, because they were first to me. Yes. I mean, that I wasn't married anymore. They were who was first to me. And it, so it was kind of easy, just because like with the other guy that I went on one date with, I was like, I just know that this isn't the right thing. It's not. Yeah. And I always,
you could feel it.
Yeah. I always tell my single friends, if they don't like your kids and you're dating, you need to run. Like,
oh my gosh, that's so.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a guy that I know that is like dating this, and it's like, it's just a very toxic relationship, and because the stories, and like his children hate her and she hates them, and I'm like, how is it ever going to work?
Yeah, and and I say that,
but it's hard enough. I mean, marriage is hard enough. Like,
it is.
Like, not to buy into the whole thing. I mean, it's got to, I would just think your chances are more against you than they would be normally, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it takes time. I mean, kids are kids. You don't always like them, their behavior and stuff like that. Crazy. But at the end of the day, we had the same values as far as what we wanted in a marriage and how we wanted to parent.
Yes.
That was important to me.
So that's a great segue into our next question. Now, and this is how do you and your spouse align parenting styles, especially when your children had different rules or expectations before?
Mm-hmm. So I'll set the scene. So Robbie had one biological son.
Yes.
Never said no, never rolled his eyes, never pitched a fit. I had never seen anything like it in my life. He was just so obedient, very quiet, just wanted to read or play Legos or whatever. My kids were the normal, kids. And so as far as like when we align our styles, I mean, we had lots of conversations about, we knew what we were going to step into. We knew there would be things that would kind of, but we knew it was going to be hard. And we knew that like, I had to discipline. My kids would act out and just like normal kids. And he never really had to discipline much because Will was just so obedient. So, aligning our parenting styles, at the end of the day, I was always, he would help me with my kids. But at the end of the day, I ultimately was their biological parent. So I was going to have the final, not that we argued about it, we really didn't, because I knew that the way he parented and the way I parented was a lot in the same, but a lot different, because I had to be on my kids, to make sure that they were, and he didn't necessarily as much. So there were times, I think, when Will, Robbie's biological son, would get overwhelmed, if I had to discipline my kids and they would, or they were loud or things like that. And we just try to be mindful, like he might need a little space. He might need to, like have some time to himself or something, because it was a lot. But at the end of the day, there wasn't any issues on like TV time or we when we got married, we kind of set it together, like what we wanted for our house.
Okay.
And
so even before you got married, you sat down
we
and
sat
like
down, yeah,
and had like, okay, like this, like our home rules are going to be like
Yeah.
kind of sit. So like, so you're saying like if you are dating and you find someone, like to the listeners, you know, before you even get married, but even if you've already been married, sometimes it's, I mean, I could even do this, you know, it's like sit down with my husband, have a game plan, like these are the like hard fast rules, and to be on the same team.
Yes, and things were hard. Things weren't easy all the time, and we just had conversations about what we like, the rules and stuff like that. And basically, I just kind of moved my rules from home to when I lived in Atlanta to the beach, you know, when we moved, and he was respectful of those and he understood. And I have a great relationship with my ex-husband and his ex-wife, and we, you know, anytime there was like an issue, we would communicate with them and try to be on the same page, because it was hard for their dad. You know, he agreed that it would be good for them to live here with me, but that was a huge decision for him. That was hard. He's a great dad.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted Robbie and I and the two of them to be on the same page, and for them to know our parenting styles and what we would tolerate and not tolerate in our home. And we would have like weekly conversations when they were younger about it. And it was just like, I appreciated that with Robbie. You know, I mean, we came in, I laugh, we came in and like rocked the world, you know, 3 kids, and, you know, and then here they had this quiet little home, and, you know, Robbie is full of fun. So he loved having more kids there.
Yes.
You know, he always wanted that. But he just was always like really patient and trying to be understanding about our kids are different. Will's very different than my kids, and we're putting them all in one house together, and there's going to be hiccups, and there's going to be days that I've got to discipline a kid, and, you know, and he'll pick up the other kids and try to do, you know, like he was my helper, basically.
Like a teammate.
He was.
You gotta have, I mean, the truth is, like, I can't, like, my husband, like, the other day I was like, man, he's such a trooper. You know, like, you really, when looking for a spouse and you know, like, having a teammate, I mean, because, like, we're not designed to do this life alone. Like, we're supposed to be together and as a unit. And, I mean, even as somebody who, you know, just Jeff and I being from 2 different types of families, like our discipline style, and they're always just like, get always on the same page. Like even if you don't fully agree with the way that they're doing it, just get on the same page.
Yeah. And one of the we had counseling too to help us with this, was a united front.
Yes.
In front of the kids. That was huge to me. Like, I feel like when you're not a united front, even if, I mean, your kids can tell.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they know.
And they know, and they'll go right through it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They'll run right through. As soon as they see that door open.
Yeah.
They'll run through. Yeah.
Yes. And so that we tried our best. Did we have arguments and stuff? Of course we did. That's normal. But we tried not to, you know, have those in front of them. And if they did see like a disagreement or something, we would try to circle back and show them that we forgave each other or whatever. I just never wanted to have a home for them in a blended family where there was a lot of yelling and stuff. Like, the kids have been through enough, you know? And so that was one thing. You're going to have disagreements, especially you're going to have disagreements in a blended family. But if you... Even
in a non-blended family.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. We have tons of disagreements.
But we just always tried to be like a united front in front of them. And even if he thought like, oh, Shelli, like you're, you know, I tended to be strict, really strict. And
I'm strict too. It's okay.
Yeah. And he would come to me later and say like, I think like you need to ease up a little bit. Or I think, you know... But like in a calm way. Yeah.
Or not like in front of the children, like, hey, Shelli, you got to back off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
and that was, you know, we really tried to make it a peaceful, stable home for them. Yeah. You know, even though it was hard. And
it seems to do well because they want to, they want to come back and hang out with you. I like saw you guys out that one and I'm like, I can't imagine like my 20-something, you know, kids like wanting to hang out with me on a Tuesday at Redfish Taco. Like I thought that was really
that was
cool.
important to us. And then just, you know, there were hard times. I mean, there definitely were hard times where people, you know, one might be missing their dad and then one might be missing their mom. And then, you know, and you just, you have to just take it day by day and just have a lot of compassion and understand that parenting styles are going to be different, but you have to communicate and figure out what those, what those are. We didn't do it perfect, that's for sure, but there were some things that we did to try to, marriage counseling and blended family seminars and things like that.
So you've been to blended family seminars. So what are some of your so for people that don't have the opportunity to go to like a blended family seminar?
There is Jimmy Evans is a pastor, and he, I want to say, goodness, I think he's in Texas. I'm pretty sure he's in Texas. That's where we went. It's been so long ago. But anyway, we went to a marriage conference, and he also at the marriage conference had some videos on blended family. So we got those and we watched those. But any advice we could get, especially godly advice, like that was, we kind of would grab onto that and try our best to, but it's, like I said, we weren't perfect. I don't want to make it look like we were perfect. There were hard times. Yes. Definitely hard times.
Well, I mean, there's no such thing as like a perfect family. So for people out there that, like I have a friend who, they have a blended family, and she was saying that how with, her husband's child, like maybe kind of similar, that, he has one and she has several, and she's trying to kind of like, I don't know if they fully have embraced that the family unit, because kind of, he maybe not like the understanding level. So, when you have a blended family, especially at first, when it's kind of like rocky, I mean, we didn't even have children when our first year of marriage. I mean, we barely made it. Just because, we barely made our first year. Like we're so both stubborn and selfish and all those things. I'm probably more selfish and he's probably more stubborn, but we, especially at first, like what are some things that like people can implement? Like what are some like standard like steps that they can implement to respect the other spouse that's no longer in there. And because I had an assistant, and I literally asked her one time, I was like, you're like the most well-rounded person. I literally said this to her. I said, you're probably one of the most well-rounded people I've ever met. You work hard. Her values are right. Like she's cares about her family. Like she just, and I just remember asking her, and I knew that her parents were divorced. I said, how are you so well-rounded? And she said, even though my parents got divorced, they were still friends and they never talked bad about the other one.
That is huge. That was huge. And I remember, after we got a divorce, my ex-husband, we went to counseling, something with the kids or something. And she looked us both in the eyes and she said, divorce is not what, I don't want to say, what it is hard, but what is harder for kids is when they see their parents talking about each other behind their backs to the kids, triangulation, trying to, and
it's so
we
sad.
Looked at each other, my ex-husband, and we said, we will not do that. We may think differently or parent differently and sometimes, or things like that, but that was so important. I mean, I just kept telling myself, these kids have been through a lot. They don't need that. I mean, if I had an issue with one of the kids or they wanted to do something and I needed to ask her dad, it wasn't ask your dad, it was I went to ask him, things like that I did feel like we did a good job with that. But, sometimes people have ex-husbands that don't work with them well,
Yes.
But I still believe you should not talk about.
So let's talk about that, because there's a lot of people out there that there's so much anger and resentment about the divorce, what happened before, because like we have, Jeff and I have some friends in there, and I mean, the stuff that they say in front of the child, I mean, it is, you're like, whoa, you're thinking, I told Jeff, I was like, golly, like that's, and they may truly feel that, but like the child's not the resource. So
it's just not fair to them.
So like what, so besides like, don't talk bad about it, like like, what do they, because that's something in them that they have to forgive that person and kind of move on, right? So like, what are some practical steps to do that? Like, what are some mistakes that you've seen people or that even you made that are common, and like, what's the solution to it?
Yeah. Well, one, like I said, to not talk, even if, their dad said no, they couldn't do something, and they came back to me and said, Dad said I couldn't do it, oh, well, I would not say, well, I can't believe you won't do that. Or, I can't, that was one.
Even though you may have thought that.
Even though I might have thought that, and I might have called him later and said, hey, like, can we work together on this? Or sometimes it was just a no, and you just have to. But that was one thing, trying to have another united front,
Yes. So not only having a united front with the new spouse and your new family, but also having the united front with the ex.
Yes. And to, not only, there was a lot of like healing to do that I realized, on my end that I needed to do, forgiveness, there was shame, there was all these things that, I was so busy trying to make this blended family work that I wasn't really focused on myself, and I had this new marriage, and we were both trying to, you imagine throwing 4 kids and a new marriage.
Yes.
And so that was tough. It was really, really tough. And I think, one of the things that I had to do was work on myself, and I had a lot of work to do, and I didn't realize it until I dug in. Forgiveness, just when you don't forgive someone, this is what I've learned, you still stay tethered to them.
Yes. Yes.
And
it's like a cancer.
It's negative.
Yes.
The kids can feel it. You can feel it. And so that was one of the things that I had to work on. Shame, forgiveness. Like, who did I want to be? What were my values? Even though I might, my personality might be this. Like, who do I want to be? What kind of mom do I want to be? What kind of stepmom do I want to be? And that took years of figuring out. And, I look back now to the younger Shelli back then when the kids were younger, and I'm like, wow, like, I've come so far, like really far. They would, like, let's just say one of them would have a bad day at school or start missing their dad. And, to them, I would comfort them. But then when I got in front of Robbie, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe, like, I don't know did I make the wrong decision? And then, he would be sad, like, oh, like he felt bad for me. And then we felt disconnected, and so it was like counseling was a huge thing for us. Journey Bravely is a local counseling center here. Stephanie Craig, Todd Craig, Stephanie changed my life.
She's amazing.
Changed my life. And I tell her to this day, like, if I hadn't have met you, I would not be who I am today. I've still got work to do, but I look back now and I'm like, I can't believe, like, I thought that way, felt that way, had that much shame. God tells me who I am. I don't, nobody else tells
Amen,
me.
girl.
So that's a whole nother part, is the journey. You got a divorce. Like, why did you get a divorce? What can you work on that will help you not get another divorce? Like, things like that I had a lot of shame and I needed to work through and forgive, and just all the things. It's not just taking care of the kids. It's work.
Well, and it's so funny because a lot, especially, it seems to me that with a lot of moms, like, can get so focused on the children, and believe because they are a mother. Like, I've been in places where somebody's like, psh, like, their husband is like a second thought compared to their children, which I'm like, that's
very easy to do.
Yes.
Like, when I'm moving my kids here, and Robbie was understanding that, this was going to be hard, like, his son was here with his same friends, with his same teachers, with his same school, and my kids were kind of uprooted a little bit, or they were, even they wanted to live here, it was still hard. And so he was very patient with understanding that. But I just remember my counselor, Stephanie, she was like, Shelli, you have got to give this over to God. Like, you have got, your values, know what, all these things, but you let the little things get to you, and then it's like your whole day's ruined. And I spent a lot of time with doing that at first. Did I make the right decision by moving here? Did I not?
Well, that's got to be tough, especially for Robbie.
And it was all, yes.
So for people out there that are newly married in a blended family and they start having these doubts and stuff like that, it's really, that's a non-truth, right? It's a non-truth. Like, you're already there. You can't go back. You can't turn around. Like, we're designed to go straight forward. And so so when you did have, because I know that you've had some challenges and when things got really, really hard, and you were afraid that it might not work out because you feel uncertain that, that you made the right decision, how do you pull through?
Well, counseling was a huge
Counseling is huge
for us. Yes. And I thought we were going to counseling, for our marriage and for our kids, like our kids, and then you realize, like, whoa, like, I've got a lot of work to do.
You're like, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, I was just believing a story that wasn't true. And then you
the narratives.
The narratives,
just like, Cindy, your narrative is off right now.
Yes.
And I'm like, what? Like, he's like, your narrative,
Yes. And then another huge thing was learning the Enneagram. I don't know if I know you know, but
yes.
For the viewers, it was huge for my marriage, huge for my kids.
For people that don't, so we do tell a lot of listeners may not know what the Enneagram. That's with an E. Like, I hate to say it like this, but I call it like the Christian personality test. It's a personality test, but it's pretty dang accurate. It's kind of mind-blowing.
It changed my world.
Because you not only learned more about yourself and who you are, but it also helped you identify your family members.
Yeah, well, there's 9 ways. There's 9 numbers.
There's 9 numbers.
It could be birds. It could be trees. It could be any. But it's numbers.
Yes.
Okay, and it's ancient. It's been around a long time. But it's 9 ways of seeing, and it's not based on your behavior. It's more based on your motivation.
Okay.
So I am a 2. I am a helper. I want to fix.
You are a helper. Yeah.
I want to fix. So let's just say, when things weren't going the way that I wanted them to go, I would want to fix it. And when I couldn't fix it, 2s have a lot of shame. So then I would shame myself for not being able to fix it. So it's just like a spiral. And then...
like a cycle.
Yes. Robbie's a 7. He doesn't like pain. He doesn't want... So you imagine when you're in that cycle of shame, avoiding pain, all these things, and you're trying to parent, and you're trying to be... It just opens your eyes to see not everybody wants to be treated the same, So when we learned each other's Enneagram numbers, and then when my kids got a little older and I learned their Enneagram numbers, it changed my world. Because I have a daughter that's an 8. You're an 8.
I'm an 8.
On the Enneagram. And I can't come in and with all these things that I want, I approach her a different way. I wish I would have understood it more when the other 3 were younger.
Yes.
But
I mean, how early can you tell?
I mean, you're not supposed to.
Yeah, not supposed to.
I would say like high school or a little.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of the personality tests are good. It doesn't even have to be Enneagram. Like, there's something to like the science and behind it. But I like how you own that you had to work on yourself.
I had a lot of work to do.
Because I would have been like, well, he needs to do this. I mean, that's just me because I'm an 8. Like, he needs to work on this and he needs to work on this. So you really were like, what the work on? So a lot of moms, and you don't even have to be a mom. You could, as humans, we don't realize that if you work on, like, people feel like they need to focus on their kids or whatever so much that they don't actually take care of themselves. But the best thing you can do for your husband, for your children, is actually take care of yourself.
And I had not done that, like I had not ever, I'd had a counseling before, but not like
deep diving.
And
when I start deep diving, I'm like, woo.
Yeah. And you have to be willing. A lot of people start to deep dive and then they run because you have to be willing to face that you were that way.
So I know in this area, people are usually pretty friendly, and you were able to plug in, very soon. But for, say, the person who is into a blended family, or just started a new blended family, and there's some, people like their friends that really love the ex-wife or really love the ex-husband. Sometimes when people get divorced, kind of like their friendship group splits, and it's hard because especially when you love both spouses, like as the friend from the outside, it's hard because if you do one with one, they're like, well, why'd you do that with them? And now with social media, everybody knows what everyone's doing. And so what would you say to the person is getting divorced and, or is in that journey of how do you, I'm trying to think how I want to say this question.
Embrace?
Embrace, but also, when you were going through all this and you got to start a blending family, what was the best way for someone to support you?
I remember when I was divorced and when I was lonely, and when it was tough and you realize you wake up one day and you're like, oh gosh, I'm divorced.
Yes.
And this is so hard, and you feel lonely. And I just remember I remember specifically this one girl messaged me and she was like, you are loved, you are good, you're going to get through this. And I was just like,
so words of encouragement.
Yeah.
And was it even a friend?
It was
acquaintance,
acquaintance, and somebody I wouldn't have thought would have done that, And then I had other people that I remember going to church and, and people being kind of not really wanting to talk,
Yes.
And I think
some of it's out of discomfort.
They don't know. A lot of people don't know what to do.
Yes.
The best thing I feel is to, the kids want the parents to get along, and if you're a friend and you're showing that you don't really care for in front of the kids,
to
try to be united front, even as a friend, to love on both of them, even though you may not agree with what one of them did. You know what I mean? Things like that.
Just don't judge. Don't
leave that to God to do. There's going to be consequences. There's consequences to divorce. There are, but just loving on the kids. I remember, friends in Atlanta that would get my kids, when they were with their dad, they would go and get them and take them to birthday parties or have them over for a Happy Birthday Jesus party or at Christmas and things like that, and it was that was really kind, because
so be kind. Don't let your discomfort of not knowing what to do when somebody is getting divorced, don't let your discomfort, because I have a friend, she's like, well, she's like, well, they're not talking to me right now. I was like, don't be mad at them. They're so uncomfortable that they've become frozen. So don't let that discomfort stop you from being kind and for reaching out to your friends.
Yeah, that was always, I just remember that. I remember being like, wow, that made my day, because it doesn't matter what the situation is. The ex-husband and the ex-wife, that used to be married, they have a lot of shame. They have a lot of guilt. They have they're sad, even though they may not be acting like they are with their actions and stuff. And so just, especially in front of the kids, showing love.
So be really mindful, of the children, their perception. Because this is the thing, kids, just like they say, you can't fool your kids, you can't fool your kids and they can't fool you. They know.
Yeah.
And so really as, a person who may not actually be going through the time of divorce and stuff like that, but just really being a way to show love to that person is to respect the other spouse in front of the children.
Yeah, I mean,
just say something nice with them, oh, I saw so and so's,
or just don't say,
super cute
don't
headband.
be rude.
Don't be rude.
You don't have
or
to
not look him in the eye.
Yeah. But that was always, and who you surround yourself with. I mean, there were times when Robbie and I had a hard time, and I could have, if I would have called one friend, she might have said, well, just it doesn't sound like it's working. You should just leave him or whatever. And I remember specifically calling you one time.
I don't even know what I said. What did I say?
You never took sides, and you always were pointing me back to God.
Yes.
And you would not let me sit in it very long. You were like, you need to rise, basically, and you need to do you need to say you're sorry, or you need to do this. I mean, who who you seek counsel from is very important. Very important.
So let's talk about that, okay?
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it's easier to seek advice and counsel from people that are going to tell you what you want to hear. But that is not...
Yes. And I had a few friends that did, I had a few that did that, and that really helped me, and I could always go to them, and I knew they weren't going to gossip.
Yes.
And I knew that they were going to...
Y'all, please stop gossiping.
Yeah.
We are in our 40s.
Yeah.
Like, it is such a waste of time.
Yeah.
Can we please stop?
Yes.
Like, it's so ridiculous.
Yes. And you would let me rant a little bit, but then I remember, like, you would say, like, okay, well, we got to, you need to apologize, and you need to, like... And when you're in that shame cycle, when you're in that frustrated cycle and you're mad, you think you're the right one, and you just want somebody to agree with you, you know?
Yes.
And if you're going to somebody that's just wants you to be happy,
Yes. Hey, let's get off. Yeah. Guess what? It ain't not everything is about you.
Yes. And you have these friends that are feeding you, she's such a, whatever. He's such a, and
yes.
It's just not helpful.
It's not helpful.
It's just not helpful.
It's not helpful.
Seek counsel, like a counselor or something,
Yes. Yes.
But I thank you, because I remember you, like when times were really hard, you always pointed me, back in the right direction, and you wouldn't let me complain for too long.
I am a Robin fan, though.
Yes.
I am. But no, and not that I have it, because there's a lot of things I could be better at, and that is definitely the spouse. I could definitely work on that. But I do know that marriage is a gift, and to get a second chance. Now, Jeff is my second husband, but not even remotely close, because I was married for 4 months when I was 23. I was, but still, like, I do know.
But you remember the
is a gift.
loneliness. You remember.
I'll say this. I remember feeling like I had a scarlet D on my chest. And I was only, how old was I? I was 25. I was 25 years old. Nobody here even knew my husband. He didn't even live here. But I still felt like I had a scarlet D on my chest.
Yes.
And I had to go to counseling with Dr. Taylor. And so I'm, because I was like...
You introduced me to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Dr. Taylor. He's like an angel.
I know he is.
He's an angel. Before I went on my first mission trip, have you met Betty Sue, his wife?
No.
She's a firecracker, and like, she is so freaking cute. So we're praying for all the people to go on a mission trip, and we get done. And it was like all this, it was like real serenity, and like everybody was like all like, feeling great. And she goes, P.S. Jesus, we need even more prayers because Cindy's gone, blah, blah, blah. And just sort of saying all this stuff about me, like calling me out for this prayer circle.
Thanks, Betty Sue.
Yeah, but she's a firecracker. But, I think that, I love how God, like, puts people in your path, like, when you need them. But you say that about me, but I'll call you and I'm like, this is going on with my daughter. And you're like, you'll give me very, very sound advice. It's like, I know that if I call you, you are going to give me sound advice, because that's another thing, like, seek wisdom from your friends that have already gone through that. Like, your daughter is going off to college now. And, my daughter's 13, like, you've already been there. Don't, seek advice for people that have walked the path already ahead of you. I think that's, really important too. So for somebody who, is just starting out in the blended family journey, what is some practical advice that you would give them?
One thing that helped us a lot was validation. Like, just say that your daughter is having a hard day, and it's like you're in your blended family and you're trying, and it's like you've got that to deal with and all the other kids and stuff. I would always try to fix it at first before I learned, like, fix it. If I couldn't fix it, then I was just like,
how did you try to fix it? Like, buy them pizza?
Oh, you're going to be okay. And when you validate, it's more like, oh, like, that's got to be hard. I know, like, you miss your friend in Atlanta, and that's tough.
So not only validating the children's feeling.
That was one thing huge.
Not like, get over it.
Yes, like in a blended family, because there's always things coming at you. Do you know what I mean? When you're trying to start a blended family, if it's not like,
You're not my mom.
Yeah, or a friend has not been nice and you're trying to make friends. Whatever it is, there's always going to be things. And so I always just wanted to fix. And that was one thing I had to work on for myself. And when I couldn't fix, then I was like in a bad mood.
Yes.
And, did we make the right decision? Oh, wherever, and
going down the rabbit hole.
Yes, down the rabbit hole, but just validating, that's one thing.
Okay,
and
so validation, so validating their feelings.
Yes, and then patience.
And also validating the spouse's feelings.
Yes.
Like, you're like, you're going to make a decision, like, I understand that you feel that way, like, you've been through, like, this is a big...
Yes, and that was a huge, it sounds like, validate, okay, validate.
No, it's
huge.
huge.
It's huge.
It's huge.
That must make you feel, and then you can go back to the teaching of, whatever it is with your kids, but that was huge. And then it just takes time. Robbie and I, we knew that it was,
Y'all just hit you're over 10 years now, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we do have a great family, like all of our kids. I'm so proud of them. But yes, there were times if I sat here and, it was hard. It was hard at times. And just understanding that it takes time, and that was one thing that, we knew, like, we kind of said in the beginning, like, it's probably going to take a year or two to get these kids acclimated. And we put ourselves first, our marriage first. We tried to do that.
Put your marriage first, your spouse first, even in a blended family.
Yes, even in a blended family, because they can feel it, they can tell, they can, and also too, like, when you do put your spouse first and God's in that relationship, then when things happen that are hard, instead of going to that shame cycle or, whatever, you're worried, you can just pray, like, with your spouse or to yourself, like, God, like, I can't fix this. I can't make this better. Please step in. And it's just that relationship with God that's the number one thing.
Yeah, that's the secret sauce.
Yes. And then seeking counsel. Like, it's not a big deal to go to counseling. Yeah, I think, when we were younger, it was like you went to counseling if something was wrong.
Yes.
And now I'm so glad.
We had Rafi on. She's like, it's like chic now.
Yes.
Yeah. She's like, it's chic now to have a therapist. Like, it's like cool.
Episode with her. Yeah. Yes. But it was just, those are a couple of things that I think would help. And just understanding, like, putting yourself in their shoes and understanding kids are going to have a hard day. Having a blended family is hard at times. And then it's beautiful at times.
Yes.
And as time goes on, it gets easier.
Okay. That's good to know too.
Yeah.
Well, Shelli, thank you so much.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
So I am so grateful that you took your time today to speak life to others. It's so important. So for those of you that finished us through the episode, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming. We hope that you have learned some things that you may use in your own family. You don't even have to be a blended family. Any family can learn from validating feelings, seeking God first, and putting your husband at the forefront and working on ourselves. We all can do that. And so I appreciate your time. Please follow us at Soul Hype Cindy, SoulHypeCindy. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. Please like, subscribe, and follow Soul Hype Cindy.